Let's do it, everybody. Hello. So much to talk about, so much to cover. A lot of shit has gone down. We're going to get even more into Israel's attack on Iran, Iran's response, Israel's incredibly large miscalculation, along with the United States. All of that's coming up. Of course, we had a politician in Minnesota assassinated over this past weekend. I'll be talking about that. And we have more news on a socialist possibly winning the mayorship of New York City, which would be pretty crazy on that front. All that and so much more. Please do click thumbs up, click subscribe, and let's get into it. So I'm not going to rehash all of the details of Israel's ongoing attacks against Iran, but I'm going to bring you some of the stuff that the mainstream media isn't covering so much. Sorry about that. Always good to leave the phone on during the show. But yeah, so this is just a short 10-second video of the mass destruction that has happened in Israel, because they'll tell you what's going on in Iran. Iran has been hit many times by Israel. They've done a lot of damage, but Israel's been hit as well. Tel Aviv, some very important infrastructure areas, the Israeli equivalent of the Pentagon has been hit, and that is getting far less coverage, partially because the mainstream media doesn't want to let people know that Iran is successfully striking Israel, but also because Israel is doing a lot of work to cover up the fact that Iran's missiles are getting through and are striking Israel. But Israel's trying to walk this line where they pretend that nothing's really getting through. They're stopping it all with the help of the United States and other countries. But then they're also trying to pretend that, oh, look at this destruction that's done to innocent people in Israel, which you can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, Iran's not hitting us at all, but also look at these innocent people Iran has killed. This is from Times of Israel, an Israeli propaganda outlet. And the headline is Complete Destruction. Israelis describe fear, chaos as Iran's missiles smash their homes. But of course, and I'll get more into this in a moment, there's been a lot of evidence that Iran has done quite a good job of firing at Israel without killing innocent people, whereas the reverse is not true. Israel has been killing hundreds of innocent people in Iran. Iran is actually aiming at sites that have, importance militarily, but are not generally the houses of innocence. However, if you're going to find missiles of people, of course, people are going to die. And the word now is about 20, I think, Israelis have been killed, whereas hundreds and hundreds of Iranians have been killed. And so again, Israel's trying to walk this line where they go, oh, we're stopping all of their missiles. We can so easily defeat them. But also, we're not stopping all the missiles, and they're hitting the houses of innocent people. So which is it, Israel? Which one do you want to go with? Clearly, a lot of Iranian missiles, a lot of Iranian armaments are getting through the so-called Iron Dome. If it's an Iron Dome, why are their houses being hit? Israel, you want to answer that one? This is from George Hazim, who says he's written, Iranian ballistic missiles struck deep into Israeli territory, damaging critical infrastructure, including the Israeli military headquarters and the renowned Weizmann Institute of Science. The much-hyped Iron Dome failed. So did the U.S. supplied THAAD systems. Israel's aura of invincibility has evaporated, and with it the myth of consequence-free aggression. For 75 years, Israel has framed every offensive act as self-defense. Airstrikes on hospitals in Gaza, self-defense. The bulldozing of Palestinian homes, self-defense. Targeted assassinations, sieges, blockades, genocide, all self-defense. The old self-defense genocide. Sometimes you got to do that, right? You got to just genocide entire people for self-defense. To continue from his article, that narrative propped up by the U.S. and repeated across Western media is now being rejected. And, people are kind of trying to suss out the actual reasons that Israel is doing this, because they're a minute away from any second now they're going to get nuclear bombs. They've been saying that for years and years. I went down the list on the last live stream about just how many times they've said, they're a week away from nuclear weapons. They always say that. It's never been true. Anyway, someone put together a few video clips. This is like 30 seconds or something, or a minute, of Israel over the years saying that Iran is moments away from a nuclear weapon.
It will take Iran about 12 months to enrich.
This is 2023 for those of you listening to the podcast.
Enough nuclear material for a single nuclear weapon.
United States
2021.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is warning that Iran is potentially just months away or less from nuclear breakpoint.
Iran is
2015.
2 months away from a nuclear weapon, and it's a victory to get them 1 year away.
Iran
2013.
could be less than a month away from building a nuclear weapon.
Netanyahu has made
2012.
two tough talking TV appearances, saying that Iran is just months away from making a nuclear bomb.
What is important to understand is that you have to
2001.
dismantle the entire terror empire, and especially before its main practitioners, the terror states of Iran and Iraq, acquire nuclear weapons. And this, I think, has been a wake-up call from hell. It is telling us you have the power now to act.
Take Iran.
Yeah, Netanyahu was on TV basically the day after 9/11 to say we have to attack Iran and Iraq, neither of which had anything to do with 9/11, because he's a fucking sociopath. But thank you, Bowling for Columbine, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. But yeah, so if they're not doing it, if they're not doing it because of this nuclear threat, which is clearly false, then why is it Israel is doing this? And why is it the United States, even though Trump and his administration and his goons and his sociopaths have said, this strike had nothing to do with us, even though they did that, they're still not stopping it. They could, of course, stop it with a phone call. We are the only reason Israel can continue to exist. The United States is. So why would the U.S. allow this? Why have so many in the U.S., the neocons, been promoting a war with Iran for decades now? Well, there's slightly differing reasons for Israel and versus the U.S. With Israel, it is that Iran is the most powerful entity in the region that does not want a theocratic apartheid settler colonial state sitting in their region. So they're the biggest threat to Israel in that way. With the U.S., it has a lot more to do with the petrodollar and oil. But that doesn't mean the U.S. likes Iran being a powerful threat to Israel, which is basically our unsinkable battleship in the Middle East. Although Israel's starting to look a lot more sinkable, I'd say. A lot more sinkables. Thank you, Reverend Edmund Balela. Really appreciate you supporting the show. He says, despite all these troubles, we have to look to our political future, Lee. Yard Rock 2028. Yeah, Yard Rock's been taking a break for a while now. The literal rock that I ran for president. But, he had a good campaign, though. But anyway, even Reuters, to get to the real reason that what Israel's doing to Iran, their real reasoning, even Reuters has admitted that the real reason Israel's doing this is regime change. So anytime you hear them go, nuclear threat, bullshit, it's regime change. And this is rare to get from Reuters. Reuters being a neoliberal, largely pro-imperial propaganda outlet, but that doesn't mean they don't have some admissions here and there. Reuters says the scale of the attacks, Israel's choice of targets, and its politicians' own words suggest another longer-term ambition toppling the regime itself. Despite the damage inflicted by the unprecedented Israeli attack, decades of enmity toward Israel, not only among Iran's rulers, but its majority Shiite population, raises questions about the prospect for fomenting enough public support to oust an entrenched theocratic leadership in Tehran, backed by loyal security forces. So, yes, Israel's trying to create regime change. They're not going to succeed. At least I don't see any way they're going to succeed. And I also want to, I realize this is not good for being a YouTube talking head, but I also want to say the people who tell you they definitely know what's going to happen, they don't definitely know what's going to happen. They have strong theories, strong beliefs, and I want to bring those to you, the likelihood of what will happen. But for all we know, Trump is unhinged to allow nuclear exchanges. So saying you absolutely know is ridiculous. But I think Chris Hedges makes a lot of great points in his latest article, and I want to go through some of them. Some of them I might have a bit of a disagreement with, but for the most part, I agree a lot with this. Thank you, Pittsburgh Dude, for supporting the show. Love you guys supporting the show. It's amazing. Pittsburgh Dude says Iran could be months away from creating a unicorn riding on the back of a pig with wings to fly over Israel and drop poison-laced Qurans and Mein Kampfs. God, that's so true. Not enough people are talking about that factor, Pittsburgh Dude. I couldn't agree more. Here's from Chris Hedges. The neocons who orchestrated the disastrous wars with Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Libya, and who were never held accountable for the profligate waste of $8 trillion taxpayer dollars. Don't try and process that number. Blood will shoot out your ears. As well as $69 billion squandered in Ukraine and counting, look set to lure us into yet another military fiasco with Iran. Iran is not Iraq. This next part could not be emphasized enough. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran is not Lebanon. Iran is not Libya. Iran is not Syria. Iran is not Yemen. Iran is the 17th largest country in the world with a landmass equivalent to that of Western Europe. It has a population of 90 million, 10 times greater than Israel. That's 10 times more soldiers than Israel has. And its military resources, I mean, if they get the babies marching, which if you listen to what Israel says, Iran's pretty powerful. They probably get the babies march, I feel like. If you hear about the voodoo that Iran's capable of, probably marching babies, I assume. And its military resources, as well as, its population of 90 million, 10 times greater than Israel, and its military resources, as well as alliances with China and Russia. And all of this makes it a formidable opponent. And this is not to understate what Israel's done so far. Israel has assassinated a great many of the military leadership in Iran in these first few days. They've clearly been infiltrating Iranian society. Mossad is all up in there, and they clearly have the ability to assassinate many Iranian leaders. And let's not forget Trump assassinated one of them during his last term, the top general Soleimani. But that is not going to cause the downfall of Iran. It might make their military abilities a little decreased, but it's not going to end Iran. Anyway, to continue from Hedges' article, they meaning the neocons in the U.S. and probably Israel as well, but they think it'll be an easy war, said Alistair Crook, a former British diplomat and member of British intelligence, MI6, and his last name is Crook, member of MI6. Appropriate. Who spent decades in the Middle East. These neocons bonded with the Israeli leadership of Netanyahu. He went on, will not tolerate any rival power, any challenge to American leadership and American greatness. They will create facts on the ground, a war between Israel and Iran that will pull Trump into a war with Iran. Israel has their playbook laid out. This part you can mark our words that Israel, if this is not enough, if the tit for tat back and forth between Iran and Israel is not enough to get the U.S. and we're talking when we say involved, we're talking directly involved, as in U.S. firing bombs into Iran, as opposed to the U.S. supplying bombs to Israel. There is a difference there. This is clearly a U.S.-backed war with Iran, just as anything Israel does is U.S.-backed. It is a U.S.-backed genocide in Gaza right now. But Israel clearly wants the U.S. involved directly in a hot war with Iran. And yes, I did notice that before I started. Israel has bombed Iran's state TV in the latest wave of attacks on Tehran. But last I heard, that state TV is back up and running. Michael Derry, thanks for supporting the show. Love it. I do not frown upon super chats. Okay. One of the many ways, basically the only way I'm able to keep this show and my shows going with all the suppression is like a little bit. It's whatever the reverse of death by a million bee stings is. A little bit of support here and there is how I'm able to do it. So thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it. But anyway, to continue, so that last thing I read said they will create facts on the ground. That is another way of saying false flags. Creating facts on the ground means that Israel will get at least the world, maybe not the United States, but the government, not the United States government, but a lot of the world to believe that some false flag has happened, that either Iran attacked U.S. military bases, et cetera, et cetera. They can find a million of these, and Israel is no stranger to false flags. People should look up the USS Liberty if you're unfamiliar with it. Back many decades ago, Israel wanted to draw the U.S. into one of their wars in the 1960s, and they attacked the USS Liberty, killing many scores of U.S. Navy seamen, and the U.S. maybe not initially, but the U.S. eventually, rather quickly, knew that it was Israel who had done it, and no ramifications. Nothing. Just, okay, Israel attacked us. Okay, sure, killed a lot of soldiers. Okay, cool, awesome. While Iran's air force is weak, this is back to Hedges, with many of its fighter planes decades old, it is well supplied with Russian air defense batteries, Chinese anti-ship missiles, as well as mines and coastal artillery. It can shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is incredibly pivotal, the world's most important oil choke point that facilitates the passage of 20% of the world's oil supply. This is why oil prices are going up around the world. This would double or triple the price of oil and devastate the global economy. Iran has a large arsenal of ballistic missiles it can unleash on Israel, as well as on American military installations if they wanted to. While initial waves can be intercepted, repeated attacks would swiftly deplete the Israeli and U.S. air defense stockpiles. Iran has the ability to get through the little tofu dome that Israel has there. I've also heard it called the diaper dome. I guess that's because shit gets through. Is that the idea? Is that why it's called the diaper dome? Thank you, Zia, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. But anyway, they can deplete it. They've proven they can deplete it. And Iran so far has continued to be the adult in the room. Their response has been calibrated, has been proportional, and they have not attacked U.S. bases or anything. They're not intentionally attacking Israeli civilians, even though Israel is attacking Iranian civilians and has killed hundreds. Israel is not equipped to endure a war of attrition, such as the 8-year conflict between Iran and Iraq that ended, despite U.S. support for Saddam Hussein's regime, in a stalemate. Or, as in Israel's 18-year occupation of southern Lebanon that eventually forced it to withdraw in May 2000 after repeated losses suffered from Hezbollah. Israel cannot fight off an Iranian missile attack, said John Mearsheimer, a West Point graduate and professor in political science department at the University of Chicago. You have this very interesting situation where not only can Israel not win these wars, but they've turned them into protracted wars in which Israel is heavily dependent on the United States. And speaking of heavily dependent on the United States, I know it's insane to even say this, but in many ways, Trump has proven to be the slightly, very slightly, we're talking just a pubic hair width, more sane, more stable than a lot of the people around him who are pushing for full-on war with Iran. Now, that doesn't mean he won't ultimately go there. He is the one who ripped up the Obama-era deal with Iran that would have kept peace between the U.S. and Iran. But Hegath, we know, and, there's a lot of previous people that have encircled Trump, such as Pompeo and Bolton and all these goons who would dive at the chance to be in a full-on war, hot war with Iran, as opposed to sending missiles to Israel, who then bombs Iran. And Hegath, who's the head of the Pentagon, we know he is a white supremacist Christian crusader. He has the giant Christian crusade cross, which is mainly used by white supremacists, tattooed on his body. Hegath is absolutely in those rooms right now pushing for full war between U.S. and Iran, but also full war with China. That is the type of lunatic, and you gotta put that at Trump's doorstep as well. Trump decided that's who he wants at the top of his Pentagon. Awesome idea. And Trump is also the one who, as I mentioned before, assassinated Iran's top general without us being at war with Iran, without there really any reasoning for it. And it was Iran's top general who had defeated ISIS. And Trump's the lunatic who did that and easily could have started a nuclear war when he did it. But luckily, Iran has so many times proven to be far more responsible than the U.S. and Israel. You got to also remember that over these past many decades, Israel has been assassinating Iranians. They've assassinated Iranian scientists, open air in the streets. They'll just kill Iranian scientists. They've killed generals. They assassinated several of Iran's generals many, many months ago in Syria, before Syria fell, at the diplomatic consulate, which is a war crime and against international law. But everything Israel does is against international law. This is not unusual for Israel to be violating all kinds of international norms, international laws, committing war crimes. It's just, it's called Tuesday for Israel. Israel, back to the article, Israel and its neocon allies believe they can eradicate Iran's nuclear enrichment program by force and decapitate the Iranian government to install a client regime. That this non-reality based belief system failed in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Libya eludes them. Now, this is perhaps the only thing I disagree with in the article. I hate when people say, oh, we had these giant failures. The U.S. empire had these giant failures in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, etc. Now, there are huge aspects of them that were failures, such as the amount of money dumped into Afghanistan and that we stayed there for 20 years and that the Taliban were back in power. But with every one of these, the goal was to basically make them, they would have loved to have a puppet regime, and they largely had one in Iraq for a while. But the real goal was just to make them kind of failed states without much power, which succeeded in all of them. In all of them. So this idea of, oh, look, the U.S. empire failed in Libya. It's like, no, Libya was a rather successful country. Gaddafi was doing many things that the U.S. didn't like, such as having nationalizing the oil, having many socialist programs such as free housing. But more importantly, he was going to drop the U.S. dollar. He wanted to get other African countries to join a African-based gold dinar system that would have subverted the U.S. dollar. And if he had succeeded and other African nations joined him, and then the rest of the African nations saw what a good deal it was, and they started switching, well, then the entirety of Africa would be off the petrodollar. That's fucking nightmares for the U.S. empire. That's everything that they do is based on the petrodollar, and the U.S. dollar is the global reserve currency. So they got what they wanted. They got Gaddafi bayoneted in the streets. Libya's no threat to them. Libya's back into the U.S.-controlled central banking system. Done. Massive success. You think they care if it's warlords fighting and open-air slave markets and sex trafficking and the fucking horror show in Libya right now? No! They're psychopaths. They don't care. So it's not a failure. Oh, this huge failure they had. That implies that they care about human beings that are not them. And they fucking don't. So can we please stop saying they failed in all these countries? All right. Israel, at the same time, wants to divert world attention from its genocide and mass starvation in Gaza and the accelerated ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. The Israelis understand that if you have a general conflagration, which means giant war that's fucking awful and kills thousands, if not millions, people will not be paying much attention to the Palestinians. And so far, that's been true, hasn't it? Since the moment the Israel started bombing Iran several days ago, how much you heard about Gaza? How much you heard about Palestinians? Almost nothing. And there wasn't enough before that anyway. But that is true. The more you can have a war with Iran, then Israel can continue their genocide, and far fewer people are going to talk about it. Iranian attacks would eventually leave hundreds, then thousands dead. Iran will appeal to Shiite Muslims for the region. This is another key point that I haven't heard talked about almost at all. To the region in what the Iranian leadership will describe as a war against Shiism, the second largest branch of Islam. Saudi Arabia, which condemned the attacks on Iran, has 2 million Shiites who live in the oil-rich eastern province. The Shiite-dominated government in Baghdad will side with Iran. Yemen will continue to disrupt maritime traffic and hit Israel with drone attacks. Hezbollah, however crippled, will renew attacks on northern Israel. The United States has pushed China, and here's another important point. All of this is pushing our so-called enemies together, which we seem to be getting quite good at. Biden, Trump, first Trump, doesn't matter. They've all been awesome at pushing other countries to join together and start working together to stop the unhinged, bloodthirsty lunatics that is the U.S.-Israeli empire. The United States has pushed China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran very close together. They form a tight-knit bloc. Largely as a result of the Ukraine war, the Russians and the Chinese have been driven together. And given what's happening in the Middle East, the Iranians and the Russians have been drawn together as well. The United States may be helping Israel, but it's important to understand that the Russians are helping Iran. It's not to America's advantage to have China and Russia aligned closely against Washington. It's not in America's interest to have Russia and Iran working together against Israel and the United States. The generals, politicians, intelligence service neocons, weapons contractors, and so-called experts, celebrity pundits, and Israeli lobbyists are not about to take the blame for 2 decades of military fiascos. Yet again, I think it's true that they want to dump this off on someone else, but are they really fiascos? Or did the U.S. empire get what they wanted? And in fact, Israel mostly got what they wanted as well. They wanted Iraq to no longer be a threat to them. Iraq's not a threat to them, really. They wanted Libya to not be a threat to them. Libya is not really a threat to them. They wanted Syria to no longer be a threat to them. Syria is no longer a threat to them. Not only is the former head of al-Nusra, the al-Qaeda offshoot, running Syria, but he keeps saying that Israel is not, his problem or his enemy or however he phrases it. And when Israel, after Syria fell, after Assad fell, Israel went in and blew up a large portion of Syria's military weaponry, their jets, their helicopters, etc. And HTS, the new head of Syria, was like, it's fine. That's fine by us. Fine by us to just go in and destroy all of our weaponry. So anyway. So yeah, they're not military fiascos, really. But to continue, he says they need a scapegoat. It's Iran. The humiliating defeats in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah, I shouldn't even read this because I disagree that they're defeats. I do agree there's a lot of humiliation around them. There's, the humiliation of how fucking catastrophic Afghanistan was, the amount of money dumped into it, the amount of people who died, and then just to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. It's kind of humiliating, but I think still largely achieves what the U.S. wants to achieve and Israel. Anyway, I thought there were some really important points put forward by Chris Hedges. Thank you, Denise, for supporting the show. Denise says, folks saying this will start World War III, and I'm like, nope, this would be the U.S. and Israel against the world. We basically told NATO to kick rocks already. Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it just depends on how you define world war. It could be a lot of the world against each other. But yeah. Let's see. A few more things from Middle East Eye. By the way, if you want updates that are not mainstream corporate garbage, Middle East Eye does pretty damn good job on this. This is Iran's foreign ministry spokesman opened his press conference in Tehran on Monday by displaying images of civilian victims, including children killed in Israeli strikes. He said it is the Zionist entity that is accustomed to killing innocent children as they are doing in Gaza. He described Israel's military actions against Iran not as conventional conflict, but as an assault on humanity. He said it is a belligerence initiated by a criminal group defying the international community and international law, urging immediate international intervention. He said all those who believe in peaceful coexistence and the rule of law must act to stop these brutal, ruthless crimes, to pressure this Zionist entity and bring it to account. And yeah, speaking of peaceful coexistence, you have to remember, when was the last time Iran bombed someone except when Israel was actively bombing and assassinating their people? When was it? How often is it happening? But you compare that to Israel, you compare that to the United States, endless. There's nary a time that the U.S. isn't bombing or destroying or killing someone. We killed over 6 million people, or 4.5 to 6 million, but this study was 5 years ago, so add a few million. 4.5 to 6 million people in just the global war on terror from 2002 to 2022. That's not even everything. That's not proxy war in Ukraine. That's not the genocide in Gaza. That's just the other stuff. But yeah, if you compare who's killing who, Iran is the peaceful country. He also called on allied nations to push for a binding resolution against Israel, declaring such a move as a necessary first step. He condemned the Israeli strikes as baseless belligerence and repeated Tehran's position that the actions constitute a flagrant breach of international law, which they, of course, do. Thank you, Kevin, for supporting the show. Really love all the support today, you guys. Thank you so much. Kevin says, saw your former employer, RT, was taking Trump's side on sending troops to LA. Well, yeah. For those of you who watched RT, you might have noticed I was, especially towards the end of my tenure there, it's been 3 years since my stuff was banned and canceled. But I was kind of one of the few leftist, left-leaning people remaining at RT. RT had, because they saw that after 2016, all the suppression that was thrust onto true left-wingers like myself was pretty oppressive and decreased views and everything. And so they kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they moved towards a lot more. They had a lot of ex-Fox News people there later in my years there. So yeah, it's not surprising. Me and Chris Hedges were, I think, by the time we were all banned and deplatformed and fired and sanctioned in 2002, I think it might have been me and Chris Hedges were the only like real left wingers. There were some kind of left wing, like Watching the Hawks. Definitely have a lot of mostly left wing stances, but if you're talking 3 shows out of 20 hours a day or whatever. Yes, Rick Sanchez was still there, but someone's asking. But Rick Sanchez was doing RT News, which with RT News, you're really told to say what RT wants you to say for the most part. Whereas I had my own show, and I was a comedy show. So I was completely free to do whatever I wanted. I mean, I was able to go nuts. Whereas Rick Sanchez, and look, I got a lot of compliments for Rick Sanchez. He did a lot of important things, a lot of important stuff. He had me on all the time and was very, very kind to me on the show. So I'm not insulting him. I'm just saying he was RT News. He was hosting their news show. Their news show is what RT wants. It's the message RT wants to get across. So that's just a different thing. Well, this would be a good time, since we're talking about the old Redacted Tonight, this would be a good time to mention Unredacted Tonight. I got a lot more stories coming up for you, though, so don't go anywhere. Yeah, Unredacted Tonight, it's the numbers. Some of the numbers for a lot of segments have been shooting through the roof. I love all the support, you guys. Help me keep this show going. The new episode this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. But also I want to announce, and that's all at leecamp.com/unredacted, by the way. The whole playlist is there, free to watch. But I also want to announce that Unredacted Tonight has just joined MeansTV. And MeansTV, if you don't know about it, is like Netflix for people who give a shit about the world. It has all kinds of documentaries, all kinds of series. It's ad-free. So if you hate ads on YouTube and other places, it's ad-free. It's worker-owned. The benefits of your, whatever it is, $9 or $10 a month. Actually, it'd be cheaper than that because I'll give you the promo code in a second. But those ad dollars, I'm sorry, not ad dollars. That money goes to the actual creators. It goes to the workers. It is worker owned. And that is very different from what YouTube does. YouTube takes a tremendous cut for themselves. YouTube is not worker owned. Clearly, it's part of Google. So just a different world. So I'm really excited that I was able to join a streaming platform that is worker owned, free of ads, anti-corporate, anti-capitalist, just all that awesome stuff. And that is at means.tv. And if you give me 1 second, I'll create a banner for this. Means.tv. And promo code Lee. Okay. Means.tv. Use promo code Lee to get 20% off. You can also get a free trial of 7 days a week. So that'd be awesome if you could do that. Go over there, get your free trial. Use promo code Lee, which gets you 20% off. It gets you 20% off for the month or the year, whichever you want to sign up for. So yeah. And if you sign up for the year with the promo code, it's like $80-something for a year, which, less than a meal you'd probably order on from DoorDash or something, less than a standard grocery, like 2 bags of groceries nowadays. You're kind of lucky if you can get an $80 2 bags of groceries at an average grocery store. So anyway, it'd be amazing if you guys could support me that way. Okay. Let's keep going though. Let's get to the political assassinations that took place this weekend. I don't have a lot of crazy hot takes on this, so I'm not going to spend tons of time on it. But you probably know this, and I didn't want to act like it didn't happen. Oh wait, that's actually that's something I'm going to show you in a second. I'm showing you the wrong people being killed over the weekend because there's so many. But anyway, in case you don't know, a man assassinated the Speaker of the House in Minnesota. Thank you for supporting the show, Canadian girl. The Speaker of the House, a Democrat, she was assassinated along with her husband at their home. 2 other people, another Democrat and his wife, I think, or husband, were also shot, except they survived or have survived so far. So at least one politician, elected politician, who's I think been in that office for like 20 years, was assassinated. There was a big manhunt, apparently the largest in the state's history, and he's now the suspect, let's be clear, has now been arrested. Vance Luther Balter, 57, charged with killing Melissa Hortman, a Minnesota Democrat, and her husband, Mark Hortman. When he was captured, he had a long list of other people he was going to assassinate. And there was a lot of other violence this past weekend that is not being mentioned. Keep in mind, as all this violence is going on, Donald Trump is parading fucking tanks down Main Street in Washington, D.C. That's what he wants you to know. So this same weekend, and these things are kind of like barely being talked about, a protester was shot and killed at a No Kings rally in Utah. The No Kings rallies were large-scale protests across the country against Donald Trump. Now, my issue with them, the reason I wasn't, yelling, everybody get out to your No Kings rally. My issue is twofold. One is I don't know that these parades do much. I think if you want to create change, you have to interrupt business as usual. These parades interrupt no business. They are good for activating younger people kind of just learning about this stuff. So, okay, do that, but just know that it's a parade. It's to let people know about these issues rather than actually creating any change. But anyway, so that's one thing. The other issue is if you look at the posters and the pamphlets and everything else that was put up for the No Kings rally, I realize I'm dating myself by saying pamphlets. Like, honestly, who has a fucking pamphlet? Where the fuck are we? What? What do you got, a printer in your basement? Okay, TikToks. If you look at the TikToks for the if you look at the TikToks for the No Kings rally, they failed to mention Gaza. They failed to mention a U.S.-backed genocide under Trump's watch that Trump is shipping missiles to every goddamn day. And if you can't mention that, then what are you? What do you stand for? What the fuck are you? So that is why that's a red line for me. If you can't say Gaza, then there's something wrong with you. Seriously. So they didn't say that. They didn't, mention NATO or anything else. Big surprise. It's standard Democrat anti-Trump protest. But so those are my issues with it. But the reason I'm highlighting this because I'm talking more about all of this violence we saw this past weekend. A protester was shot and killed at a No Kings rally in Utah by one of the peacekeepers. What the fuck? A man who was believed to be part of the peacekeeping team. Like, literally, they're wearing, like, vests. They are the peacekeepers. And he shot and killed an innocent person. Now, apparently, he was aiming for a guy who pulled out a rifle, which double what the fuck. So this guy pulls out a rifle. The peacekeeper pulls out his gun, which I didn't know at these parades peacekeepers had guns. But pulls out his gun, fires at the guy with the rifle, shoots an innocent bystander, and kills him. In Salt Lake City. Shot a person who was brandishing a rifle at demonstrators, striking both the rifleman and a bystander who later died. Police took the alleged rifleman, Arturo Gamboa, 24, into custody. Salt Lake City police chief said at a news conference the bystander was Arthur Falasa Alu, 39, a fashion designer from Samoa. So that happened this weekend, barely getting any coverage. And I'm not done. Also this weekend at No Kings protests in Virginia and San Francisco, both cities, the protesters were hit by cars. Meaning in both cities, vehicles tried to run over and murder protesters. This is 3 separate cities that had deadly or near deadly attacks on peaceful protests. Now, again, I can have my issues with the No Kings protests, but what kind of country are we where people marching to I have my issues with a march created for the liberals, but it doesn't mean that their heart isn't in the right place. They're marching because many of them are anti-war, even though they don't understand how the system works. They're opposed to ICE raids that are destroying families and destroying lives. So they're trying to do the right thing, even though they don't understand the political system as it works and that both parties are working towards the same corporate rule. But for doing that, they're attacked and murdered or nearly murdered. And maybe I have a bit more anger around this than some people and think this is a bigger deal than some other people seem to, considering how little news coverage has gotten. But maybe I do, because I was nearly murdered by one of these psychopaths at a rally. I was about 5 feet from the Charlottesville terrorist. And I don't know why we stopped calling them terrorists, because they're behind the wheel of a car instead of with a gun. But I was 5 feet from where he drove through the crowd. Me and Eleanor both were within feet. I mean, we saw people hit the ground after being hit by the car, landing at our feet. And it's just sheer luck that only one person was killed when that happened, as opposed to dozens. And the only reason it was only one person is because it just so happened that there was a stopped van in the middle of the street because it couldn't move because there were so many people marching. And the terrorist white supremacist cunt drove into the back of the van and couldn't keep going. If he had kept going, he would have driven through another, 50 people or something. But anyway, so he put it in reverse and reversed back out of the street. But anyway. But protesters at No Kings events in Culpeper, Virginia and San Francisco have been struck by motorists. The protests are taking place at 2,000 sites nationwide. Police identified in Culpeper, Virginia, they identified 21-year-old, who, let's not give him more publicity, 21-year-old asshole McJr. No injuries have been reported, so he did a poor job of his terrorism. In San Francisco, at least 4 No Kings protesters were struck by a motorist who fled the scene. Yeah, horrific. Oh, and by the way, there's video, what would go well with this is this video of ICE nearly running over protesters. I don't have the video handy, but they were trying to leave the scene. The protesters were standing in front of their, SUV or whatever to try and stop them. And they basically just kept driving. And you see the protesters kind of get up on the hood and then basically fall off to the sides. And it doesn't appear anyone was hurt, but easily someone could have fallen under the vehicle and could be dead right now. So ICE also driving into innocent people. But I think what does this uniquely have to do with the United States? Well, we are an empire of violence. I think that's an important factor of all this. We are an empire of violence. We use violence to solve every single issue around the world, as we're doing right now by supporting Israel's violence and murder against Iran, by supporting Israel's genocide in Gaza. We are an empire of violence. And that is when we've tried these, just a few other tools we have, like economic war, we then resort to missiles and bombs and guns rather quickly. And of course, economic war is also violence because people starve to death. So we act like it's not violence. It absolutely is. Now, of course, another factor of this is the fact that the United States has just an endless array of guns in everyone's pockets, as opposed to many other countries. But I'd say probably even 2 other important factors, which are never mentioned for the most part, is inequality is always connected to violence. It always creates violence. The more inequality you have, the more violence you'll see. Now, of course, violence is multiple things. It could be these assholes driving through crowds, but it could also be the violence of forcing people off healthcare and forcing them off of food stamps and forcing them to starve to death. That's violence as well. So when you have a mass inequality in the richest empire the world has ever known, you're going to see a lot of violence. It's inevitable. It's part of the process. It's part of the calculation. And the ruling elite just view it as, collateral damage. And finally, another factor in this is just how crazy the propaganda is, which has gotten the people who drove through these crowds, to believe that probably, I'm guessing, maybe they're white supremacists and they just want to kill people. I don't know. But a lot of them have believed the absolute garbage propaganda coming from Fox News or News Nation or whatever the far right wing are. Now, that is not to say, if you follow my stuff, I talk about the propaganda coming out of CNN and CBS all day long, and the 48 other liberal news channels and the New York Times, etc. But if you look at the statistics, who are the people that are involved in these, many of these mass shooter events, many of the driving through protests? Almost exclusively, though not always exclusively, but almost exclusively far right-wing extremists. And one more factor, we don't know this about any of the people that drove through crowds this weekend. We don't yet know this about the guy who murdered people, assassinated people in Minnesota. But the number one predictor of whether someone is going to try and commit a mass casualty event and usually be more successful, let's be honest, at killing a lot of people, is ex-military, some connection to the U.S. military. If you look at the largest, many of the largest mass killing events in the United States, ex-military. Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma bombing, which was not just him. I just did a big segment on that, but he was obviously the trigger man. Timothy McVeigh, ex-military. Terry Nichols, ex-military. The two attacks that were on New Year's Eve this year, both ex-military. So, and you know, I'm just listing a few off the top of my head, but it's the number one predictor of large, successful mass casualty events in the United States. And none of those factors I gave you are generally ever talked about in your mainstream media. They just go, a man drove through people and tried to kill people in Virginia. Wow, weird. End of story. No more than that. All right, let's wrap up here with some good news. And really unbelievable news. By the way, everyone, click subscribe, and even if you're subscribed, double check, click the caret next to it, and make sure it says all alerts, because I am so crazy suppressed. It's really fucking frustrating. And so I hope you'll do that. I also hope you'll join my email list. Text the word unredacted to 33777 if you're in the US. That'll get you signed up to the email list. Text unredacted to 33777. And of course, I'd love for you to become a member at leecamp.net, my locals page, or at patreon.com/leecamp. But anyway, this is pretty unbelievable. New York City, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful cities in the world. Right now, the mayoral candidate who's winning the primary is a pro-Palestine socialist. Pretty unbelievable if you know anything about New York City. This article's in Common Dreams. New poll has Zoran Mamdani ahead of Cuomo in the mayoral primary. And the other thing to know is they have ranked choice voting. So it makes a difference and can often be a big boost up for someone who does not have as much money or as much chance. But anyway, a June survey from Public Policy Polling shows New York City mayoral candidate and Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani ahead of opponent and former Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo as the city's Democratic primary draws near. Primary day is June 24th, but you can early vote right now. So if you're in New York City, if I were you, I'd go ahead and early vote, because I also usually you can early vote with paper. And if you vote on the day, it's usually touchscreen, I think. And touchscreen is bullshit. But anyway, throw that out there. But see if you can vote early, but definitely vote day of as well. June 24th, early voting's already begun. Cuomo has been the consistent frontrunner throughout the race, though Mamdani, a state assembly member who is running on an affordability platform, has risen from long shot candidate to serious contender. I also want to stress here that this does not mean I agree with everything Mamdani stands for, nor that I think on certain answers he's a little more squirrely than I would prefer. But there are times when you don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. If you had to choose between these two, Mamdani or Cuomo, accused sexual predator who's just a straight up Hillary Clintonite Democrat, which one you going to choose? Let's say those are your two choices. Which one you going to choose? Cuomo's been a consistent frontrunner, but now Mamdani has surged in the polls after the one debate. I think they're only having one debate. Circle Home, thanks for supporting my show. Really appreciate it. Circle Home says vote more than once. Don't think that's allowed, but thank you for the support. The relevant question in the poll lists 8 Democratic candidates running in the race and asked respondents who they would vote for among them. 35% of respondents said Mamdani, while 31% said they would support Cuomo. The other candidate options listed did not break above 10 or 11% of respondents. So basically, it's a two-person race, 35% for Mamdani, 31% for Cuomo, which is also kind of not a huge margin. So this is not to say these numbers couldn't easily change, but to bring you some of the things that Mamdani stands for. And let's also remember that as New York mayor, you can do a lot, but you can't, it's not like he can stop nuclear proliferation or something. I mean, you might want to hear him talking about that kind of thing, but that's not really what the mayor of New York City does. So he stands for freezing the rent, and there's nowhere more. I lived in New York City for 12 years. There's nowhere more expensive than New York City, or not much. There's also nowhere where real estate is more powerful than New York City, as we can see with the fucking president who made his wealth and exploiting people with real estate and often racist real estate practices. Donald Trump did. He was actually prosecuted for that. It's really a shocker to find out Donald Trump had some racist shit in his past. What? How could that be? You know what? How can Donald Trump dislike someone or look down upon someone for their skin color when he himself is orange? Come on. How can he? It's just hypocrite. Also, Mamdani stands for fast, fare, free buses. Okay, that's too many Fs. I don't really like saying that. Can you just change that? Because it's stupid. I don't like it. Okay, I don't like that. I actually don't like that policy just because there's too many Fs in it. I'm moving on. No, but of course transportation should be fucking free. Public transportation should be free. It should be one of the many things a massive city like New York City should give you just for being a part of their goddamn city. Free buses. No. Let's suck money out of the poor, which the poorer people are the ones on the bus the most. I mean, yes, in New York City especially, middle-class people do take the subways and stuff, but the ones who are on it the most are going to be the bottom third of income earners in the city. Make it free. The Department of Community Safety he wants to have, which is kind of his effort to decrease the role of policing or police in many incidents, many, events that people act like need police. As we've seen with many other cities who have tried it, when you create a community group of people who respond to mental health issues, to other incidents that do not need idiots with guns, things go far better. You don't destroy lives. You don't have as many innocent people murdered when police are not going out on a lot of the things they go out on. And of course, the reason this has not, quote unquote, caught on across the United States is because it's part of the purpose of the police that they are sent out on everything so that they're out there everywhere. Like, if you send out idiots with guns everywhere to do everything, well, then the ruling elite have idiots with guns whenever they need them everywhere doing everything. It's to keep you scared, it's to keep you afraid. And of course, the end result is loads of people have their lives destroyed. People locked up for 20 years for doing hardly anything or doing something that shouldn't even be illegal. People murdered for no reason. That's why moving to some other system where the cops are not sent on so many calls has an important impact. Now, that should not be where we stop policing reform, but it could be a start. He also says no cost childcare. Another thing that should just be provided by your goddamn system. And by the way, many other countries have that. If you look at a lot of Scandinavian countries, they give free or near free childcare to anyone just because you're a citizen. Could you imagine? A government that cares about their citizens that much? It's hard to even process because we're indoctrinated and we're fucking dum-dums. City-owned grocery stores. This was an idea. I happen to know someone who had the ear of Mamdani, and I've never spoken to Mamdani, so I'm not saying that. And I told this person, oh, if you what would really be effective and important to people, grocery costs have gone through the roof. You should tell them to come up with a plan where it's like cheap groceries somewhere, for people that need them. Like, you're telling me a city as big as New York City couldn't find a way to bring cheap groceries? Turned out, Mamdani had already thought of that. And he was already doing it. He came up with this idea before I ever had my idea, which was clearly not my idea. Clearly, other people have had it. Yeah, city-owned grocery stores, and this doesn't mean the other grocery stores wouldn't be there. If you're like, no, I love my fill-in-the-blank awful corporate grocery store, you could still go there and spend a lot more money. So don't get upset about, my really expensive corporate grocery store is going to go away. No, it'll still be there. You can go get your expensive groceries. Yes, you can. Nearly 9 out of 10 New Yorkers say the cost of groceries is rising faster than their income. Only the very wealthiest aren't feeling squeezed at the register. And so he's come up with a city-owned grocery store system that could give you affordable groceries. Housing buy-in for New York. He wants to bring affordable, rent-stabilized, union-built 200,000 units over the next 10 years. And New York City may be one of those places. I don't actually know nowadays all the details about New York housing, but it may be one of the few cities where you actually do need more built spaces to be built for people. Whereas whenever in most other cities, most places across the United States, when people say we need to build more housing, no, it's fucking sitting there. It's sitting there. It's empty. There are 17 million empty housing units across this country. It's just they're owned by rich douchebags who don't use them, or they're owned by the banks, which is also rich douchebags who don't use them. So it's not that we need more blocks to house people. We have them. We just let them sit there because the wealthy have learned that owning housing units they don't use is a way to dump their money somewhere that isn't dollars. And so they just buy them up and leave them sitting there. Maybe they let a friend crash there for a weekend once every 3 years. So the build, I don't think we need to build more stuff. We just need to change the way it's allotted because our system is bullshit. Cracking down on bad landlords. That sounds good. Taxes on big corporations and the wealthiest New Yorkers, which would definitely not be part of Cuomo's plan because Cuomo is the wealthiest. Cuomo is best buddies with the wealthiest. By the way, the fact that Mamdani might win this thing is putting terror into the rich in New York and those who fund them. So Cuomo is getting billions of dollars, or millions, maybe not billions, but millions of dollars from billionaires dumped into his campaign to try and defeat Mamdani. And by the way, if Mamdani wins the primary, I will bet you roughly $900 billion, which I, of course, have, that Cuomo runs as an independent. So it's not over after the primary, but you need to vote in the primary. Hopefully Mamdani will win, and then we'll see how the general election shakes out. And by the way, in that general election, you're going to see the big money dumping into Cuomo like crazy. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap up. I'll be back Wednesday with a live stream, new Unredacted Tonight, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't seen all the episodes, you can check them out. leecamp.com/unredacted will take you to the YouTube playlist. Let's see. There we go. And I've recently joined MeansTV. So I would love for you to do your free trial at means.tv, www.means.tv. And when you're checking out for your free trial, do promo code Lee so that if you do decide to become a member, you will get 20% off of that first month or your first year or whatever. And yeah, that would be amazing. It really supports all the creators, other creators at means.tv, Abby Martin, Richard Wolf, Second Thought, This is Revolution, loads of cool shit over at means.tv. And thank you guys for being here. I will see you Wednesday. And keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha